Welcome back, dear students. Today, in the 12th session, we are about to begin with report writing. Report has been derived from the term reporter. Reporter means when you give an analysis of what has been done. Now, you must understand that report can be given during the course of time when the project is going on. It can even be given in, say, regular intervals, and it can even be given in an end, like a report card. It comes at the end of the semester, so that is a report of your academic performance. Site report. You must have seen pillars of. If you haven't, then please notice. You'll find some dates written on the pillars of the flyover. Say November 19, September 19, January 20. So you'll find different dates written on them. And like the pillars are progressing, so is the report progressed. At every particular period of time, the progress report is given. That how much construction has taken place, how much material has been consumed, how much time will it require, how much money will it require more. Because proposal is a work designed before the working is done. Because proposal has been derived from the verb to propose, means to put forward for consideration. And proposal report is a thing which is done after the completion of the work, or maybe during the course of the work. Like, for example, a patient is there. Patient is treated for a particular ailment, and then you're asked to conduct a few tests, a couple of tests, say blood test. After every 2 days, you see that the same blood test is conducted, same samples are taken, same test comes. Again, you have to spend the amount of money on the same kind of test. But you know what? The doctor in question is trying to see if there is a deterioration or there is a betterment, or the position of the ailing person is stagnant. So report gives us that data. Okay, now I'll begin with the sharing. And as I've already told you, in every session I remind you that you can use it as a primary source or a secondary source. You can add, you can delete anything. Please see to it that it has been designed according to the needs of the syllabi. Please stick to it. Okay, yeah, I'll begin. Report writing, the formatting, and the elements of the report. Here are the main sections of the standard report writing format. Now, as I've already told you, the report has been derived from the term reporter, a description of an incident or an accident. Like if there is some kind of an incident that has taken place, some kind of a happening, then you give a description of that. So that is an incident. If unfortunately somebody meets with an accident, there is some kind of a casualty or injury, then that the report written, the material written on that is known as accident. If some construction is going on and some progress report kind of a thing is given, that by far this work has been done, the slab of this floor has been put, the pillars on this floor are near functioning. So that is a site report. If you are working on something and you are asked how far have you reached in that work, so that is a progress report. And if you are academic students, especially in BBA and MBA, it happens, in administrative studies it happens, that a person is supposed to write a case study. That is an academic report, where a child or a student, what does is, he takes up a situation, a business situation, and according to that, he builds up some kind of data or support or troubleshooting. That is a case study. Now, if you come to the bifurcation of the report, then here are some standard sections of a report writing format. Technical section. If the report is short, the front cover can include any information that you feel is necessary. It must include the name of the author, the date on which it is prepared. But in a longer report, you may want to include a table of contents and definition of the terms. Now, if it's a short report, say a report of 5, 10 pages, 11, 20, 11, 15 pages, then you need not to put a, say, table of contents. But if the report is of about 25, 30, 40, 50, 200, 300 pages long, then you have to put a table of contents. Unless and until you'll put a table of contents, how will the person, the reader, come to know that where is which information? Sometimes you use technical terms, like you may use a short form, you may use a technical term. So you have to define that technical term for the better comprehension of the reader. Summary. There needs to be a summary of major points, the conclusions, and the recommendations. Now, everybody, as I told you in one of my earlier sessions, even everybody is falling short of time. Everybody has only 24 hours and they cannot devote it to just one thing, the reading of your 200-page report. People like Ambani, Tata, these people, they don't have time that they can read, they can go through 200 pages. So what happens is during a flight from Delhi to Mumbai, they'll read that 20-page summary. They have 40, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. They'll read that 20 minutes report. Or rather, somebody else will read that the summary of the report and will give the findings with the person concerned, the business tycoon related. So he comes to the conclusion, and according to the recommendations, he acts. Why? Because only experts can provide recommendations. You don't take recommendations from everybody. It's not a normal advice. It's not a normal suggestion. It's a recommendation. And on the recommendation of somebody, tons and tons of things depend upon. Crores and crores, Arabs, innumerable lives are involved. So recommendations, really matter, and they are the mandatory portion of the report. Summary can include them because people don't have time to give a thorough reading. What they go for is a general overview of the report. Some people will read the summary and only skim the report to make sure you include all the relevant information. It would be best to write this last, so you will include everything, even the points that might be added to the last one. Now, you should not write the summary at the beginning of the report. It is placed before, in the beginning of the report, but please don't write it during the course of the beginning or in the middle of the report. Always write it at the end. Keep it for the end, and then add it in the front pages. Why? Because if you write it in the end, you will remember what you have written in the introduction, what you have discussed in the body, and what is the conclusion that you have drawn, and what are the kind of recommendations you have made, or any last minute changes that have been made, or have been omissions and the additions that you have made at the last. Now we come to the introduction of the report. The first page of the report needs to have an introduction. You will explain the problem and show the reader why the report is being made. Now, report is always based on a problem statement. Unless and until there is a problem, the report is not made, because the proposal itself was designed on the basis of a problem. Like suppose if we take an example of a flyover from which begins from Anand Motors and lands up near Reliance Petrol Pump to BVD. There was a lot of chaos and confusion every day in the morning and in the evening. Hours and hours long of jam during the times when people from telco used to come, people from different colleges used to come, and a huge crowd from BVD came out. So there was a lot of trouble. There were commuters even. Commuters are daily travelers. The people who travel daily to certain place, like people from Lucknow to Barabanki, Barabanki to Lucknow, Lucknow to Faizabad, and so on. There were so many people who were traveling up and down each day for their job. So what happened? Happened that people thought that this place definitely needs a flyover, not only because of the chaos and the time wastage, but it even needs a flyover to avoid the accidents that were taking place. So the first page of the introduction of the report, that is the introduction, needed the problem statement. The problem was daily jam, daily wastage of time, threats to the life of the commuters, so everything that was included. You need to give a definition of the terms if you did not include this in the title section, and explain how the details of the report are ready. Now, if you have chosen some kind of a technical term and you have not given it in the title section, then you need to explain it there and then. It's better that you explain always there and then, because you might skip one or two and the person won't be able to make out what are you trying to put or what are you trying to write and say. Explain how the details of the report are arranged. It is in the introduction that you basically explain how the report has been arranged for the reading of that person. Because introduction is where the reader comes to the conclusion of what actually the report is all about. And the mind mapping begins from there. Then comes the body section. This is the main section of the report. The previous sections needed to be written in plain English, but this section can include jargons from your industry. There needs to be several sections, with each having a subtitle. Now, if you talk about the introduction, then it has to be written in very plain English. But in this section, that is the body, this section can include jargons, especially from the type of industry you belong to. There needs to be several sections with each having a subtitle. Now, everything should have a subtitle. Unless and until you give a subtitle to the report, the things won't be understandable, because the reader won't be able to comprehend what are you trying to put. Information is usually arranged in order of importance, with the most important coming the first. Now, that is what order of importance is all about. That you put the most important thing before, in the inductive order. That is, the particular things come before, and in deductive order, it is the vice versa. That is, the unimportant things come before, and then accordingly, by and by, it progresses. The most important thing comes in the end. But in the body of the report, you are supposed to be in the inductive order. That is, moving from the unimportant, from the important to the unimportant. That is, from the particular to the general. It is included. Basically, if you wish to add a discussion element, you can add it. But this section should be added at the end of the body to go over your findings and their significance. Like if you want to add a section of discussion, there is no harm in it. You can add. You can discuss the whole issue in detail. You can, because your findings entirely depend on this discussion. So if you make a very valid discussion, these things will become really very easy, and so their significance. The significance, the importance of the discussion that you've made is really, worth penning down here. The conclusion. This is where everything comes together. Keep this section free of jargons, as people will read the summary and the conclusion. Now, the most important aspect while you are making this is that you have to write the conclusion in your own words and in a very simple way. Keep it jargon free. Even in a thesis like a PhD, the conclusion is written in your own words. You're not supposed to make any kind of quotes or anything. You cannot include quotes in that section. Conclusion is entirely jargon free. It is very simple, because it is the conclusion and the summary that people are going to read, and at the max the recommendation. Because according to your conclusion, they will decide whether you have made the right kind of report or not, whether the project that is going on is feasible or not. The conclusion is the deciding factor. Your recommendations may be different from the perspective of the person who has read your conclusion. His findings, his recommendations on the basis of your conclusion can be entirely different from your recommendations. Because if it's your perspective that you have seen it in certain fashion or way, I may see it in a different way. Recommendation. This is what needs to be done. In plain English, explain your recommendations, putting them in order of priority. Now, recommendations are the uh, mandatory part of the report. If you ask me what is the most important part of the report, then it is the recommendations. Now, but you have to see that recommendations are in a very plain language. They have to be in a very plain English. You have to put them in order of priority. What comes first? What is the factor that you are giving your priority most to? You must think before you present it. Appendices. These section includes the information that experts in the field will read. It has all the technical details that support your conclusion. Appendices is a portion with technical details. Basically, the things which are not very clearly defined within the text. Because sometimes it happens that though you give the full form of something, you may in a word or two define what that means. But appendix is a portion where you can define it in a very in a sentence or two. So appendix is you can include so that it can even support the technical details of your conclusion. This report's writing format will make it easier for the reader to find what is he looking for. Remember to write all the sections in plain English, except for the body. Also remember that the information needs to be organized logically, and the most important information comes first. Now you have to put things in a logical order, because unless and until in communication you take up a logical order, things won't be clear. You have to be very rational in your discussion. You cannot just make irrational decisions and write anything that is irrational or illogical. You have to give description. You have to logically define each and everything. So see to it that you remember these informations while organizing it. Now, as far as the expected knowledge from you on this topic goes, what I expect from you is that you must know the structure of the report. The structure of the report that we have discussed by far, that is the title section, the summary, introduction, body, conclusion, recommendations, the appendices. You must be able to write the structure. You must be able to define them individually, and basically you are not expected to write a report on some happening or something, but you must know what to write on the structure of a report. You must know the standard description or standard division of the report, that what headings come in what order. This is the least expected from you, that you must know in what order things are put. Don't forget, the table of contents is only meant for a longer sense of report. You don't put it in shorter reports. For about 10, 15, 20 pages, you need not to put a page of contents. Okay? Now, after completing your segment on report, I am going to discuss to you about the tips of writing nicely. That is good writing. Here are a few tips for good writing. First and foremost, keep it very simple. Don't keep it complex. Don't show that how much vocabulary you have, because there is no point in making people feel small, making them feel small or belittling them. Be very simple so that everybody can read and appreciate your ideas. Keep it very simple. Do not try to impress, rather try to communicate. Keep the sentences short and to the point. Don't be very lengthy. Don't be very circumlocutory. I have used this term circumlocutory a couple of minutes back. It means actually when you run about and then you turn around and then you again put it in certain ways that the person sitting in front of you or reading your thing may not be able to understand in one or two goes. He needs to go uh, through it again and again. Don't use circumlocutory structures. Don't use esoteric grammatical structures. Don't be very difficult on yourself and on others. Be very short and to the point. Don't use lengthy sentence structure. I have seen people using sentences of around 5 to 6 lines. The reader, pays to maintain the pace with your writing. The person doesn't reach to that point. They're not able to remain on the same page. They are unable to do that. Do not go into a lot of details unless it is needed. Like for example, if you want to explain something, explain, but in a nutshell. Don't be very elaborated. But if it is needed, if people ask that what is this, please kindly elaborate, please elucidate. Elucidate means to explain something which is difficult to understand. If I say you are telling me something about the function of, say, AI, artificial intelligence, and I say, Beta, can you please elucidate? Can you please explain in a more greater manner? So it is then that I've asked you that you should increase your length. Unless and until you have asked to increase it, please be very precise. Be very cut to cut. Make sure every word needs to be there and that it contributes to the purpose of the report. Now, if you are writing a report, you have to see to it that you have to make sure that it contributes to the purpose of the report. Don't use words just for the heck of it. Make sure that every word is used that needs to be there. Please don't increase the length of the report, because there is no point in increasing the length of the report. If it can be made in a shorter way, please make it. As I've already told you, communication, the more precise it is, the more concise it is, the more brief it is, the better it is. Use an active voice rather than passive. Active voice makes the writing more smoothly and easily understandable. If you're using active voice, like suppose, like these rules can be used, you can be asked to state rules for good writing. These can even be used as a part of the concluding matter of report writing. If you are asked how to write an impressive letter, you can use these tips for good writing for letter writing. Okay, use an active voice rather than passive voice. Active voice makes the writing more smoothly and easily understandable. Now, if you use active voice, please get me a glass of water. Like suppose if I say, Abhishek, can you please help me out on this? Abhishek was asked by ma'am if he could be helpful on writing a report on AI. No, that is passive. Use active voice. Active voice is more easy. It make things very lucid, very easy, very followable. If you always use fewer words, it also like if you use fewer words, then it will be brief, it will be understandable. When I right now gave you an example of an active voice and a passive voice, the passive voice was more wordy. So if you're using passive voice, it actually uses a lot of words. It gives the impact to the writing by emphasizing the person or the thing responsible for an action. Here is an example. For example, the bad customer service decreases repeat business. Now, if resort to active writing, there are three things that are very beneficial. Firstly, you'll be very simple. Secondly, you'll be very unwordy, you'll be very concise. And then you will make less grammatical errors. But if you are writing in a passive tone, you might make many grammatical errors. You might even end up being too wordy. You might end up being too circumlocutory instead of being simple. Good grammar and punctuation is important. Having someone proofread is a good idea. Remember that the computer cannot catch all the mistakes, especially with words like red, there. As I told you, there are so many autocorrections. There is so many times it happens that there is predictive text open. You write and the predictive text comes in. There is autocorrection of what you have written. The other day it happened that I wrote READ red, but it became RED red. Then I again went back and I corrected it and saved it. There. There, THERE, there means something far off, here and there. But THEIR there means unka. There, it's their headache, it's their problem, it's their to take a call, not us. Us and them, ours and theirs. Okay. Now, if we talk about good writing, then good writing is dependent upon the clear thinking. The more clear you are in your thinking, the more good you are in your writing. What is clarity? As I told you, clarity is nothing but a clear thinking on a sheet of paper. The more clear you are, the more precise you are, the more concise you are, the more of a good writer you are. Writer needs a lot of skills. Only language, the command over language and grammar doesn't matter. It does, of course. It's an added value. It's a matter of gross concern even, that you have to have a good grammar, that you have to have a good punctuation knowledge, you have to have a good language, command over the language. But there are certain things that come with time. They need a lot of practice. Once there was this great magician, Mr. Sarkar, and he was asked in an interview, "Sir, what is the secret of your magic?" He's a magician. So he said, "I have 3 thumb rules and I follow them." And the interviewer, out of great curiosity asked, "Sir, what are they?" He said, "Practice, practice, and more practice." So, my dear students, if you want to achieve that level of writing, you'll have to increase on your practice. What will you increase your practice on? Writing? No. Firstly, begin with listening. Listen to people very carefully. When you are listening to people, just see to it, when you are sitting in the class, when you are sitting in a session, just see to it that you don't go into communication selectivity mode, in your own reverie of thoughts. Don't start sailing on some cloud of glory. Don't daydream. You should be very attentive when you are in a session or in a lecture, because you might skip something really very important. When you are listening to somebody, you have to understand that you have to overcome many barriers. As I've already explained you about the psychological barriers, the physical barriers, the cultural barriers, the linguistic barriers, you have to overcome them. You have to have the command over the language. Like suppose if you are a student of computer science, then what is expected? That you must know about computer, you must listen to the lectures very carefully. You must brush up on your knowledge, your skill. Your communication can only improve if you work on it day by day. Rome was not built in a day. You have to give time, every second and minute that is possible, to your skill enhancement. You have to enhance your skill. You have to work on it. Listening is the first stage. Unless and until you listen to people carefully, you won't be able to act, you won't be able to know things in detail. You can't understand the concept. The important thing is that you understand the concept before making a desperate plunge of speaking, understanding, or writing. Please listen to people carefully, because Before you make a desperate plunge, if you would have listened carefully, there may not have been any scope for misunderstanding or misleadings or more discussion on that topic. Then if you come to the listening part, as I've told you that earlier printing was not possible. For how long was one person supposed to write on leaves and everything? The data withered. So what happened? That people transferred their knowledge, transferred their learning for ages and ages through word of mouth. The Vedas and everything, they were actually transferred to generations with the oral mode. People were taught, people were made to learn them, wrote them by heart. They had it by heart. कंठस्थ कर लेते थे. And then they passed on to the next generations. But it would have never happened if they would not have listened to the teachers, preachers carefully. Listening is not hearing. Hearing, I've told you, it's a physical ability. Listening is when you are paying attention. You are making an active effort. If you can hear my bird chirp in the background of my sessions, then hearty congratulations, you can hear properly. But if you are sitting in a very in an environment where there is a lot of din, din means noise, din of music, blare of music, din of machine. There is a lot of discussion going on. Where you stay in a very hostel room, so you don't have many means. You have a limited space. So what will you do? You'll use earplugs. You'll use headphones. So now that you are trying to listen to me, overcoming your barriers of health, overcoming barriers of pain, overcoming the barriers of disturbance that going on around you, the hunger, that is where you are listening to me very carefully. Then comes the stage of speaking. Speaking, defines you. Speaking is the definition of your persona, how you speak. But then when you are speaking face to face, the body language even matters. How you hold your body, how you, in what kind of gestures and postures do you communicate? The facial expressions, the facial animation, the eye contact. It really matters. The during the first session I told you, the ideal eye contact is that of 3.25 seconds, according to London study. Communication is really very important. Speaking defines you. It tells a lot about you. It not only tells about your way of putting things, it even puts forward your perspective, your thought, how you think. This is what you have presented. This is what you have said. Because what you meant, you have said. But see to it that what you meant, what you have said, and what the person in front of you has heard and perceived and understood is all the same. Then only effective communication can take place. Speaking, the other day I told you, बातें ही हाथी पाई है, बातें ही हाथी पाओ. The kings used to give elephants as a gift. Elephant was considered a very huge gift to a person who spoke eloquently. If the person spoke in a very rude manner, or if he spoke something which was not very good to the ears of the king, he was crushed under the foot of the elephant. Speaking is so important. I'm going to share an anecdote with you. You must be thinking, man shares a lot of anecdotes. But sometimes explaining with anecdotes is really very easy. And your kids, anecdotes must be your favorite. So let's continue. Once upon a time, there was a man. He had a little boy. That boy was very rude. He used to talk to people very badly. Sometimes he was bad-mouthed. Sometimes he used to use slangs. Sometimes he used to swear. People were not very appreciative of him. People hated him. Hate is a very big emotion. And world and life is too small. to hate someone. World is not a place to put hate in between people. But then people hated him. One day he was, feeling very belittled. He was very sad. He was on the verge of depression. He went to his father and he was sitting very solemn in front of him. The father said, "Son, what happened? What's the matter? What's troubling you?" The son replied, "Dad, I feel so bad. I really want to overcome this habit of, saying bad things to people." He said, "Okay, now get into the practice of saying good things. But old habits die hard. So what you should do is that every day when you say a bad word, just go to the fence in the backyard and put a nail there. Hammer a nail. Hammer a nail means एक कील ठोक देना अगर कोई गलत बात बोलो किसी से. The boy said, "Okay." It was a very good exercise. So the boy started, nailing the nails on the fence. Each day he said bad words or bad things. Someday it was 5 nails, someday 7, someday 10. Then it started reducing to 4, 3, 2, 1. Then for a day or two he didn't say any bad thing. The fence remained there. But when he said, he just put a nail. One day he was finding a place to put the nail, but the fence was full of nails. He went to his father and he said that the backyard fence is full. Where should I go now? The father said, "Now you should start pulling out nails." He said, "Pulling out nails?" Yes. Say one good thing, don't say any bad thing, and say good things to people. Be a very good boy to people and pull out a nail every day. It was not extremely hard, but it was very hard for the boy because he was in a habit of saying bad things. But then he started saying nice things and he started pulling out nails. A day came when the fence went without a single nail. And now that boy was totally a good boy. He was speaking very eloquently to people, very nicely to people. He brought his father and he said, "Look, now there is not one single nail in the fence, only the ones that are holding it." The father said, "Now I want you to rub your fingers over the fence." The boy started doing it, and there were holes. It pricked. Somewhere, an odd piece of wood struck in his skin. It started bleeding. It pained. He said, "Father, the fence needs some kind of, uh, you know, maintenance. Maybe it needs to be changed." He said, "Son, it is just a fence. But what you have done to the heart of the people is beyond repair. So when you are speaking, make sure that you are choosing the right words, the right emotions." Reading is the third stage. Reading you can improve by as much as you can read. Read good literature. Increase the level of your reading. As I've told you, take time to appreciate what others have written. Imitate it. There is no harm in imitating them, but don't plagiarize. Then come to your writing skill. Improve your grammar. Improve your writing. The legibility of the writing even matters. How legible you write, how beautifully you write. I'm not asking you to learn calligraphy. What I'm asking you to do is to work on your writing skill and the improvement of your writing. Tomorrow's session is somewhere I start with writing. That why communication skills and why writing beautifully and expressing yourself in a beautiful way matters so much. So today we come to an end after discussing the 4 stages of learning and expression and communication, that is LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. In today's session, we discussed reading and writing in detail. The other session, that is at 11th session, I discussed reading, and today in the 12th session, I discussed on the writing skill. Improve on both of these, but don't forget listening and speaking are equally important. Unless and until you listen, you won't be able to speak. And unless and until you have a good speaking skill, you won't be able to read. And if you don't have good reading skills, then you won't be able to write. They're all correlated. Okay? Thank you so much for attending the session. Take care, stay fit, spend time on your communication skills. They need a lot of improvement, and so does mine. Everybody needs improvement. That is the beauty of life. I'm even going to share an anecdote soon on improvement. Okay, so stay tuned. I'll share a very beautiful anecdote which I was told when I was a young girl. Okay, thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.